even, I mean, the current 2021 draft format, Ranger's Guile actually isn't as good as a lot of the other pump spells.
I suppose that makes sense. My experience has mostly been sealed deck. The best deck I had 4 Colossal Dread Maws, and nothing escapes the Maw has been my experience.
Just really finessing your way to victories there, huh?
Finesse is a wildly inappropriate word for the way I approach sealed deck. Jason Bouchard on the play with the mono green aggro strategy, though. That's turn 1 Pelt Collector into possibly a second Pelt Collector, possibly a Scavenging Ooze, as we see Burchett shock for a breeding pool for an opt. Leaving it up for now, but that's where it's going. You see the second land, no pump pre-combat. Looks like it's going to be second Pelt Collector, and it will. That means the Scooz is going to grow both. This is a nice start here for Jason.
You say it's a nice start. I'm a little worried because if, the only thing that Jason has to pump those creatures on the next turn is the Ooze, and it gets either gusted, this clock is pretty slow.
Yeah, I suppose just 2/1/1's not the fastest thing. Burchett only has 1 Ether Gust. Both players knew that, though, as you alluded to there, Burchett has drawn it. So here's an attempt at Scavenging Ooze. There's the Gust. This will buy Burchett some time.
Lots of time, yeah.
And the Scavenging Ooze goes to the top. Bouchard decides with just Nissu Who Shakes the World in hand that he's going to need some action as we see Burchett shock in land number 3 for a Steam Vents, leaving up, I suppose, Mystical Dispute for full retail. And that just works on the Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, so first push to the top, redrawn, countered on the way there. Pelt Collector's only attack for 2. That does put Burchett down to 11, but this is the Reclamation turn, it looks like.
Yeah, Autumn does have the Reclamation here. It's a little unfortunate that they had to shock themselves twice in the first 3 turns of the game, so the life total isn't quite as healthy as I would expect it to be.
Yeah, those shock lands do add up. See Reclamation deployed now. There's a Growth Spiral, an Opt, and an Expansion Explosion. Oh my. Huge draw for Bouchard, though. And now is Nissu Who Shakes the World, which could come down this turn, and or Questing Beast over the next 2 turns. Taking some time to think about, how would you sequence this one?
This is kind of an interesting line here. I think I'd be pretty inclined to get the Nissa onto the board this turn. And the next turn, if Nissa is resolved, you've got the double mana to both play the Questing Beast and potentially activate the Mobilized District.
Bouchard's going to go for the Questing Beast. That's going to prompt an Opt from Burchett. That yields an Expansion Explosion. Not too helpful there. And then Growth Spiral. Finds Mystical Dispute, though. That needed to be off of the Ops to work. So that Questing Beast is going to grow the Pelt Collectors and get in there. And that's 8 damage. That is not trivial. Yeah,
this is turned into a clock. And again, the double shock in there just seems to really be the difference in this game.
Yeah, Burchett could be at 7, firing off this explosion. This land number 6. So with the Reclamation, there's 12 mana here. That could explode the Questing Beast with 4 left over.
Yeah, and Autumn has to think, all right, I need to deal with the Questing Beast. I need to deal with one of the Pelt Collectors. And then there's also the Mobilized District back there. That's a lot of different things I've got to deal with.
Yeah, because of the text on Pelt Collector, the Questing Beast is just going to grow them when it dies. I don't know. Can Burchett even aim Explosion at the Questing Beast? Like, is there a string of 4 cards that can clean up enough for the rest of the battlefield after that?
Well, I think there's no other option, correct? Where else do you think Autumn should go with the Expansion Explosion?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure it out.
Sure. Yeah,
it looks like a lot of bad options.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that it either doesn't work or it also doesn't work.
Right, yeah. Choose how you're going to lose the game. One of those spots, maybe. So here's a 4-ball at the Questing Beast. And a stack of lands in Uro. And Mystical Dispute and Expansion Explosion against 3 or 4 unique lethal threats. That is not going to be good enough for Autumn Burchett here.
Yeah.
Mobilized District is fired up. That's 3 lethal attackers. And Jason Bouchard up a pretty quick game number 1 here. And Burchett was able to tread water a little bit with Ether Gust and Mystical Dispute, but as we kind of talked about before the match, just maybe not enough cheap stuff for the matchup, though they do have a pretty heavy sideboarding package here.
Yeah, as we would expect, right? I'm sure Autumn understands that they have shown up with a deck that's not great in game 1 for this matchup, so they're going to have a lot of different sideboard options for games 2 and 3.
Yep, bunch of red cards that deal damage. Makes a lot of sense there.
100%.
This is a fun one in Burchett's sideboard. They have chosen to register 1 copy of Perforos's Intervention. The big motivation, I believe that they register this card specifically because it deals with Rotting Regisaur somewhat efficiently. For 4 mana, you can take care of the dinosaur, and it ends up playing well enough in this matchup. That's one thing that's a bit unique about their build.
Yeah, that's an interesting card that I don't see come up very often, so hopefully Autumn draws a copy and we get to see what happens.
It's a really interesting kind of fireball effect. I imagine that they basically never make the elemental. You know, they do play these big X-Spells, Expansion Explosion, one of the most important cards for Team of Reclamation, but you can't really take advantage of that to do damage to your opponent with Perforos's Intervention. So things like that and the Soul Seer, they are just kind of clunky 1-for-1s, but clunky 1-for-1s is kind of what Autumn needs to get into the late game with this matchup. Hopefully some efficient ones, though. You see a couple of heroic interventions, even one being left on the bench for Bouchard. Do you have any interest in having that card in your configuration in this matchup, or do you think Bouchard is just trying to pedal to the floor, go fast, not so much resilient?
Well, we have the open deck list, which, maybe you're saying I'm going to try to play around Storm's Wrath with a card like that. But in general, I think I want my deck to just be as consistent as possible.
Makes sense. Yeah, game 1 was largely just a matter of curving out. And Burchett on a mulligan to 5. The 5-card hand has some good tools here. Some lands, Scorching Dragonfire, now land number 4 drawn to get up to Nightpack Ambusher. As far as 5 cards hand go, this one does have some pretty good tools.
Yeah, to me, the real standout is the Nightpack Ambusher here. As long as Autumn can be fairly comfortable going into turn 4, you punk a creature in combat and then just start churning out some wolves.
Bouchard had the turn 1 Pellet Collector. Burchett's going to attempt a Scorching Dragonfire. Ranger's Guile for the save. The Great Henge could never.
Well, that actually worked out perfect for Jason. Just, Bouchard had no other plays that turn that were, very good. So getting to use all of your mana, save your creature, get the best removal spell out of Autumn's hand, it just all lined up perfectly there.
Oh, absolutely. With that second Pellet Collector, now them both getting grown by the Troll. Burchett's at 14. There is land number 4 for Burchett and a second Scorching Dragonfire picked up. So couple spells to try to get back in it, but Bouchard is not going to stop the pressure. You see land number 4 for Bouchard, some Mobilized District, there's a Questing Beast in hand, some scary stuff going on.
Yeah, and this is going to be a punch for a bunch of damage here.
Questing Beast enters the battlefield, Collector's up to 3, the Troll is that side, whole team comes in, it would be 13 if it hit, so the Ambusher is going to have to save, but is there even a block that you can feel good about? Jumps in front of the Troll, 10 points come across, Burchett's to 4. So the Ambusher gets to stick around, hopefully trading with Questing Beast next turn, but just Scorching Dragonfire for another threat. If Bouchard just gets aggressive, he closes it, doesn't he? Wolf Token is the difference maker, I apologize.
Yeah,
the Ambusher does churn out the more blockers.
There's the extra blocker, but it is still just a world of hurt if you're on Autumn's side.
They're thinking about using Scorching Dragonfire while Bouchard's tapped out. There are those sideboard interventions. Ranger's Guile, there's one main, one side, so that could be an option here. Decides to pass, though.
It's a little embarrassing if you get blown out by Ranger Skyle twice in the same game, right?
It is difficult to walk away from that. Bouchard is going to pre-combat a Pellet Collector. In case combat goes south here, that'll grow off of the creatures dying. Love that sequencing. And Gem Razor. It's going to go on to one of these 3/3 Pellet Collectors. At least it's going to try to. This is a nice window for Scorching Dragonfire.
It is, but it feels like next turn, we're just going to be in the exact same situation again.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to what Autumn can top deck. So Gem Razor still gets to show up as a 4/4. So now there's two 4/4 creatures attacking. That means they both have to be blocked. Burchett is at 4. Chooses to put the Ambusher to trade with the Pellet Collector. I suppose the idea there is that Questing Beast is legendary.
Yeah, I was a little surprised on the previous turn when Autumn deployed the Nightpack Ambusher and took out the Barkhide Mauler.